In 2013, I created Tai-ji Romanization for the writing of Penang Hokkien, and for the first time, there is a writing system, a homegrown writing system specifically for writing Penang Hokkien. And in creating Tai-ji Romanization, I joined a string of people who have created writing systems for the Hokkien language. Just a few years prior to Tai-ji Romanization in 2013, the Taiwan Ministry of Education established Taiwanese Romanization, or Tai-lo, for the writing of Taiwanese Hokkien. And prior to that, they tried out TLPA, or the Taiwanese Language Phonetic Alphabet, as also a possible way of writing Romanized Hokkien. And prior to that, there is a system of writing that has been along all the while from the 19th century right up into the 20th century. This system of writing, also a Romanized system, was created by Protestant missionaries and is a system that has been around all this time until TLPA came along, and then Tai-lo, or Taiwanese Romanization, and then nowadays I have Tai-ji Romanization for Penang Hokkien. That early system that has been around for this long, we know it today by the name of Church Romanisation, or Peh-oe-ji. And you'll be curious to know that this church romanization has its founding not in Taiwan and not in mainland China. This writing system had its start here in Malaysia itself. And so in this video, we are going to talk about how church romanization come about. So if that sounds interesting, stick around and we'll talk about that. Hello everybody and welcome to the Learn Penang Hokkien YouTube channel. My name is Timothy and today we are going to talk about Church Romanisation, or Peh-oe-ji. This is a writing system for the Hokkien language that was established by Protestant missionaries from the 19th century right up to the 20th century. The missionary created this writing system for their own use, in order for the people to read the Bible. But over time, this writing system has expanded into circular use, and for much of the 20th century, most of the writing for Hokkien is using this writing system. And you might be curious to say, but can't we write Hokkien using Chinese characters? Well, I have to say that while you can assign many of the words in the Hokkien language to Chinese characters, there will still be missing characters. There will be at least about 15% of the words we use in spoken Hokkien doesn't have an assigned Chinese character. So when you try to write Hokkien, the spoken Hokkien that we know today, using Chinese characters, in the past, you are going to hit a bump every now and then because you are going to reach a certain word where there is no Chinese character, and then you are going to wonder, how am I going to write that? And so that makes sense that eventually the missionaries decided to create their own writing system. And when we talk about the missionaries, there will be three people that come to mind. Their names are John Farnes Talmager, Elihu Doty, and Walter Henry Matters. Of these three, we are going to start with Walter Henry Matters because he is the earliest of them all, and you can say very much that he would be the founder of Church Romanization. Even though the writing system that he created and the dictionary of that is still around, I'm going to show it to you over here. Okay, his writing system has been around, but it has been modernized or revised and improved upon over time. So what we see as modern church romanization dates back to 1934. I'm going to look to the to this side every once in a while because I have written down a list of all the years, and honestly, I cannot remember it otherwise. So 1934, Ernest Gibson created his pocket dictionary, and in 1934, that would be the modern version of Church Romanisation. However, we have to dial back time to as early as 1816, and in 1816, the same year that my alma mater, the school that I went to, Penang Free School, was founded, Walter Henry Matters sailed off from London as part of the London Missionary Society, and he arrived in Malacca. And in Malacca, for the first time, he get in contact with the Chinese people. In Malacca also, he learned to speak Malay, and he learned the language of the local people. I'm quite sure that he might have gotten into contact with the Peranakans as well as the Babanyonyas. And here again, I want to differentiate Peranakans and Babanyonyas as well as the Laukat. Possibly he also met up with the Laukat. So I actually segregate the Chinese people in Malacca into these three groups. The Peranakans are the ones who are speaking the Malay language because they are the offspring of seafaring Hokkien merchants with the local women of Malacca. And so the mother tongue of the Peranakan would be Malay. The Babanyonya, on the other hand, was speaking the Chencho dialect of Hokkien because they were the offspring of refugees following the collapse of the Ming Dynasty and the establishment of the Qing Dynasty. They do not want to live under the Qing. They became refugee and boat people, and they arrived, and their offspring would be the ones speaking Hokkien, but it's the Chencho Hokkien, and it possibly differs from the Peranakans Hokkien. The Peranakans use Malay, but with Hokkien words also, but those Hokkien words are the Changzhou dialect of Hokkien. So that's the two different groups. And the third group would be the Laukat in Malacca. The Laukat in Malacca are the offspring or the merchants themselves, the returning merchants after the ports in China reopened and trade resumed with China, and the merchants came and their family came along and they resettled. They resettled in Malacca also, and settling in Malacca, they find that the most numerous group of people are the Babanyonyas who are already speaking Hokkien. So everybody need to learn the Hokkien language. And so the Chinese people in Malacca, if they were not speaking Malay, would be speaking the Chengzhou dialect of Hokkien. So that would be the language that Walter Henry Matters possibly come into contact with. And what he found astonishing is that all the people are illiterate. They can't read and write. But there is a small group of people who were literate, who were able to read and write. But they were reading and writing in a system that is different from the spoken language. So the writing system we know today is literary Chinese. So the merchant group and those who have the means to get education were reading and writing in literary Chinese, which they pronounce in the Hokkien literary reading. So that is a language that is, I can say, separated from the language of the spoken people. So the spoken Hokkien differs from the written language in a lot of the pronunciation. Now, the purpose of people like Walter Henry Matters is to witness, that is to say, to spread the gospel or to spread Christianity to the Chinese in Malacca. And he would then do the same in 1820 in Penang, and then he would move on again to Batavia or Jakarta in 1822. So his mission, his purpose of coming to the Far East is to spread Christianity. And what he encountered is that everybody is illiterate. So they were illiterate in their own language. They can't read and write Hokkien. And those small group of people who can read and write Hokkien were reading and writing Hokkien that is different from the spoken Hokkien. So, if you want to get them to read the Bible, it's impossible for them to do so because though the majority of the people are illiterate in the written Hokkien. The written Hokkien is literary Chinese. So, if I were to tell you that I'm going to, let's just say, I have just converted you to Christianity. You are a Chinese and I just converted you to Christianity, but you can't read and write Chinese. And the only way of reading and writing is in Japanese. So, in other words, if you want to read the Bible, it's only available in Japanese. What happens is that you have to learn Japanese in order to read the Bible, in order to understand it. So that is the challenge. That is the problem that a person like Walter Henry Matters is saying. The situation is that the written form differs from the spoken form. So what to do? How to get the new converts to read the Bible when the written form is different from the spoken form? Well, one way to do it is to create a writing system for the spoken language. So that is, I know it's a humongous task, but you know, when you have a zeal, a passion to spread God's word, nothing is large enough. No barrier, no mountain can stand in your way. And for people like Walter Henry Matters, he does something awesome, which is to create a dictionary and to establish the initial writing system for the Hokkien language. It doesn't mean that there hasn't been an attempt to write it before. Even the Spanish missionaries have done it in Spanish in the 16th century. But what the Spanish missionaries did in the 16th century is not passed on to this English missionary, Walter Henry Matters. So he started all over again, and he studied the Chinese rhyme books to understand what are the rhymes and what are the tones. And his discovery is that Hokkien is a tonal language. So it is crucial. If we want to Romanize this language, we need to make sure that all the tones are accurately represented. He also discovered tone Sunday, which is the change in tone. He was so surprised that even children who couldn't read and write could learn this change in tone. And today, all of you who are speaking Penang Hokkien or other forms of Hokkien possibly use this change in tone naturally because you are so accustomed to changing tones, you don't even think about this change of tone. However, if you are a learner of the language, then this change in tone is something very complex that you need to master. Let's just say, for example, for the sake of people who are not familiar with the Hokkien language, the word for red is ang, but when you put another word behind it, the word ang change its tone to ang. So it's no longer ang, it has become ang when there's another word behind it. For example, red change to red shirt, ang becomes ang sa, ang sa. So ang is a change tone from ang. So those are the things which people like Walter Henry Matters discovered, and so he decided to create a writing system. And the writing system that he created, he called it Romanized Hokkien language. And at the time that he created it, he finally published his book in 1832. And it is so difficult to understand, comprehend how much he went through to create and print his book, because at that time electricity is not even commonplace yet. So you are using a mechanical printing press. When I say mechanical printing press, it's literally, when we say printing, it is literally printing as in printing, and press actually literally means press. So the words that we use today metaphorically for printing press is literally printing press. Back then, using mechanical effort without the use of electricity. But yet he managed to create his dictionary, and the name of the dictionary is a dictionary of the Hokkien language of the Hokkien dialect of the Chinese language. Why is it the Hokkien dialect of the Chinese language? Because even back then, it is accepted that the Hokkien language, the Hokkien dialect is a dialect of the Chinese language, and the Chinese language is literary Chinese or classical Chinese. Yeah, so even back then, they don't consider Hokkien as a language as itself, but rather a dialect. And so this is the earliest effort to create church Romanization. But over time, other people start to improve on the system. Those early missionaries used Malaya back then as a stepping stone because their goal is to reach China. And in 1842, they finally get a chance to move to China and to start propagating Christianity in China. In 1842, that happens following the Treaty of Nanking. The Treaty of Nanking is a treaty following the defeat of China in the First Opium War. And having been defeated in the First Opium War, China was forced to open treaty ports. Treaty ports where the Western missionaries, Western merchants can do their business there, and the missionaries can spread their gospel without any interruption or hindrance from the Chinese authorities. So this opened the gate for the missionaries to come in to work. And one of these treaty ports is Amoy, or as we know today as President Xiamen. So Amoy became a treaty port, and because Amoy is a treaty port, two things happen. One is that the missionaries get to go to there to spread Christianity. The second thing is a lot of migrants leave from Amoy all over Southeast Asia, including to Malaya, and so there is a new wave of migrants from Xiamen arriving all over the Malay Peninsula, including to Penang. They speak a variant of Hokkien that is different from the Hokkien that is spoken in Penang. The Hokkien spoken in Penang trace its roots to the Babanyonyas, who were the refugees of Changzhou settlers. These new migrants from 1842 onwards speak Xiamen variant. The Xiamen variant is a fusion of the Changzhou variant and the Quanzhou variant. So it's a mixture, it's a rojak of the Changzhou variant and the Quanzhou variant. They arrive in Penang as in other places and become part of the community. But they cannot retain their language. They have to take over or learn the language that is already existing in places like Penang. So in Penang, the Chinese in Penang was already using the Changzhou variant as the lingua franca among the Chinese, regardless whether you are Hokkien, whether you are Cantonese, Teochew, and so on. So you from Xiamen will also have to learn this variant. So Penang Hokkien remains the same, even though there might be an elements of influence from Xiamen as well as from Teochew, Cantonese, and so on. That is the richness of the Penang Hokkien language. Meanwhile, the missionaries now had the chance to go to Xiamen, and it was in Xiamen or Amoy itself that they did a lot of work that improved on their writing system of the Hokkien language. But by then, you will see that from 1842 onwards, they no longer call it Hokkien, they call it the Amoy dialect. So if you look at later dictionaries created by the missionaries, like the McGovern Dictionary in 1869, and then the Douglas Dictionary in 1873. But in all these subsequent dictionaries, you will see that the name is now Amoy dialect rather than Hokkien. So the word Hokkien has fallen out of use when the later missionaries come over, and because they were working out of Amoy or Xiamen, they call it the Amoy dialect or the Xiamen dialect. But this is the same Hokkien language that we know. Unfortunately, because this is in the Amoy dialect, it is not similar to Penang Hokkien. And so when I myself was small, my family had a copy of the McGovern dictionary in our family library. It was one of the oldest books in our library. But unfortunately, when we moved, that dictionary got lost. I was so sad about it that the dictionary is lost. But now I still have a PDF copy, so all is not lost. But that physical dictionary that I had was gone. But I do remember that dictionary. Even when I was growing up, I had the chance to go through the dictionary, and I see that yes, the words were written in a Romanized form, that is to say, spelled with the ABC. But so often, the spelling is not something that I'm familiar with, and so it is not something that I can intuitively pronounce, even though I speak Hokkien, or rather Penang Hokkien, as my mother tongue. And so it was much later that I understand that Amoy dialect has a different pronunciation from Penang Hokkien, which leads to why I created Tai-ji Romanisation, so that it is specific to writing Penang Hokkien that follows the pronunciation of words in Penang Hokkien, and also intuitive to people that are already speaking Penang Hokkien. My goal with Tai-ji Romanisation is to make it very easy for the people of Penang who are already speaking Penang Hokkien to be able to read and write in a writing system that doesn't take that much effort to learn. If I were to use Church Romanisation, yes, the barrier to learn it will be much higher than to learn Tai-ji Romanisation. And that is the prime objective that I have in creating Tai-ji Romanisation, even though I myself would be able to read and write Church Romanisation as well as Taiwanese Romanisation. But that is beside the point. The point and the goal and the objective is to have something that is easy for the people of Penang to read and write. And so I find that it is necessary to create a writing system for the Penang Hokkien, and hence Tai-ji Romanisation was created 12 years ago, and it was in 2013. Now, that's how Church Romanisation come about. It was created, as the name suggests, it was created for the Bible, so that the people who are speaking Hokkien are able to read the Bible. They can't do so with Chinese characters because they were illiterate. And back in the 19th century, those Chinese characters were used to read literary Chinese, which is also a foreign language to those people who speak spoken Hokkien. Only a small group of people have the chance to learn literary Chinese to read those Chinese characters. You may also say, as I said before, that what about assigning those spoken language with the Chinese characters? Once again, the missionaries will stumble into the problem that about 15% of those words in spoken Hokkien doesn't have a writing system. And so Church Romanisation was created. And another name for Church Romanisation that we know today is Peh-oe-ji. And the name Peh-oe-ji itself is also another reason why I am not in favor of using it for writing Penang Hokkien, because Peh-oe-ji is pronounced in the Xiamen pronunciation, which is Peh-oe. If we were to pronounce it in Hokkien, Penang Hokkien, it would be Peh-oe-ji. So, Wei is not a native pronunciation for Penang Hokkien. The pronunciation for the word would be Wa, not Wei. So that is another reason why I would not use Peh-oe-ji or Church Romanization to write Penang Hokkien. But if we look at the name Peh-oe-ji itself, we get an idea why it is called Peh-oe-ji in the first place. Peh-oe-ji means colloquial speech or writing for the colloquial speech. And it is true. That's the purpose that missionaries like Walter Henry Matthews had. He wanted to have a writing system for the colloquial or the vernacular language, the spoken language of the people, which is different from the written language. And so it is called Peh-oe-ji. But the name Peh-oe-ji or the colloquial writing system is also a distortion of the truth, because this writing system that you can use to write the colloquial can also be used to Romanize the written or the classical form or the literary reading of Hokkien. So the Hokkien language would be used when reading literary Chinese. You would be reading literary Chinese using the Hokkien literary reading. That Hokkien literary reading can also be transcribed using this Peh-oe-ji. So to call it Peh-oe-ji is no longer accurate when it is actually a phonetic system that you can use to pronounce or to write out both the written Hokkien for literary reading as well as the spoken Hokkien. And that is one reason why I find that the name Peh-oe-ji is not very accurate. But I understand why it is called Peh-oe-ji, because the aim was for writing the spoken language. And that's why it's called by that. But as far as the missionaries were concerned, they call it to write the vernacular or to write the colloquial in the Romanized Hokkien colloquial or the Romanized Hokkien vernacular. That was how they call it. But because they were missionaries, today we call the writing system as Church Romanization. And now in the 21st century, is Peh-oe-ji or Church Romanization still important? I would say that yes and no. If your aim is to learn and to read the Hokkien text from back then it would be beneficial to know Peh-oe-ji. And this Peh-oe-ji or Church Romanization, you will also find it appearing in Wikipedia when writing the pronunciation of place names. For example, the place name that appears in Chinese characters, the problem with Chinese characters is that it is muted. It doesn't give you an indication of the pronunciation. So the same Chinese characters can be pronounced in Mandarin as well as in Hokkien. So Church Romanization or Peh-oe-ji is used to show you how that word is pronounced in Hokkien, whereas Hanyu Pinyin is used to show you how to pronounce that word in Mandarin. So in a way, it can be used, and it's used more often as a phonetic representation of the pronunciation of Chinese characters. That would be the bulk of how it is used today. But in the Penang context, I am popularizing the use of Tai-ji romanization because I want a system that is easy for people to learn. Having said that, it is always a benefit for you and for everybody to learn whatever it is out there. So if you have the opportunity, by all means, learn to use Church Romanization. So there we have it, our video today on Church Romanization. Did I leave anything out? If there is, please let me know in the comments below. I hope that through this video, you have an idea of the main writing system for Hokkien for much of the 19th century right into the 20th century. So if you ask me to choose what is the main writing system for Hokkien language all along, my answer would be Church Romanization or Peh-oe-ji. The rest came much later. Whether it's Taiwanese romanization or Tai-ji romanization, they come only in the last 2 decades of recent decades, whereas Peh-oe-ji or Church Romanization has been around for a long time. And so we are. Thank you very much for joining me on this particular video, and I want to remind you that if you enjoy it, please take a moment to give it a like and also to subscribe to the Learn Penang Hokkien YouTube channel so that I can bring you more videos. And until we meet again, Kam Sia Lu Jay Jay.